doing a video because I want to let people know some of the stuff that's going on to screw with veterans locally. If you're being targeted, um, you may not know the reason you're being targeted. Like me, I don't know why. I only know a few things. I know that apparently that my family, specifically myself, my youngest daughter, my daughter is actually, but less for my daughters overseas, but still they've been bullied as well. And one has disappeared. Her mother took her into hiding. Uh, Evidently, she doesn't realize that I'm financially captive, but I did tell her if I return over there because of her history in human trafficking, because her attitude towards it, I will take my daughter. Um, this is my middle daughter, but because we're financially captive, I'm not able to travel overseas right now. Uh, but this is about veterans that are being targeted. If you're targeted by QAnon, that's a big headache because Anons and QAnons they post everything. They'll post your IP. They'll post, if they can get into your dashboard for anything, including the VA, they will post all that stuff. And they'll make your life a living hell. But in the end, Christ the judge, Christ the true judge. You may not see justice in this life, but you will in the next. And those evil people that target you, believe me, they will receive their just due. Sometimes we don't see it, our children do. And sometimes none of us see it, including our children or grandchildren, because that person and the ones they touch to bring into evil, to do evil, to support evil, they receive their justice. Could be just before death. It could be during the process of death. It could be right after death. So sometimes that's the only thing you have to hold on to because you're being targeted so much that they are ripping your life apart. And you may not even know why. There's no court case, there's no uh, investigation, there's no crime, there's no, um, bullying that you did to somebody. There's nothing there. There's no vendetta from some family or something. You may even know these people. You may not even know these people. Such as our situation. The families that are targeting us and that are organizing against us, I don't even know them. But you may find some, very uh, slight connections with people you do know, maybe even family, maybe people you worked with. And the thing, you can't act too quickly on that. You have to be cautious with those connections you do find because it may or may not be at the fault of the connection you find. If you know the person, it may not be them. There's some people that are very clever and they have access to a lot of money, and they may try to, just like the devil does, and create a wedge or a gap between you and your family. They may be successful. I've found that jive talking preachers, jive talking, supposed to be ministers of the gospel. Uh, I haven't encountered priests like this or deacons, but sometimes you get people that will hide behind the Bible but are actually very evil people. And some of them will stand at a pulpit and they'll get into people's heads. I've seen it with my own eyes. They will get into people's heads. And so, even if you do find that connection is solid and somebody is partially responsible, you have to practice the patience, of the apostles with what they went through, the patience of Job, which is an allegorical story, but still, and have that just have the kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like the kind of patience to approach somebody, the kind of uh, the word I'm looking for escapes me, but just great patience and wisdom and how to approach people and understanding, kind of a pastoral compassion, if you will, but yet not forgetting that we also have a God that holds people accountable. And just because Jesus came doesn't wash everything away. Well, actually, I don't, it's the wrong phrase. Just because Jesus came doesn't wash the accountability of what we've done away. And, we're supposed to forgive um, people who are victimized. Us as victims, we're supposed to forgive, as well as we're supposed to forgive, ask for forgiveness, and forgive, because everybody is both a victim as well as a perpetrator when it comes to this life. Everybody does something to somebody. Some people worse than others. But, nobody can tell me that, oh, I've never lied to anybody. Oh, I've never, when I should have, give somebody that extra 75 cents. Um, when I said, yeah, I can't loan you much, everybody has done something. So, even, well, yeah, I set aside $20 for this. I'm not going to give it away. Um, everybody's done something. So none of us get out of this life without, being able to be a victim as well as a perpetrator to some kind of doing something to somebody. So everybody has to forgive, unless of course people are repeatedly doing wickedness to you. Then you have two paths. Three, actually, avoid them. Two, you can hold them accountable and minister to them and rebuke them. Uh, or three, you could just forgive them with no strings attached, but there's a good chance it may repeat again. Um, I guess the fourth would be to forgive them, hold them accountable, and rebuke them so that things don't happen again. So I guess there's four routes. That being said, let's go all the way, segue all the way back to the original reason of this video, is to warn people who are being targeted and to tell people there is no connection between my health vet, between the call, or no, my healthy, no, I think it is my healthy, yeah, my healthy vet, va.gov, and the intake center. There's no connection between these. I just called what I thought was calling the VA regional line to be transferred or to talk to somebody who deals with VBA, and I got a call center that claims that they can easily transfer me to customer service for the intake center. It's not true. It's not true. Basically, all they could do is open up a file. They may be able to see a little bit more than we can on va.gov regarding a claim, um, but they can't easily transfer you. And I could tell by the lady that I was talking to that she's talking on a laptop because it was too clear, it was too loud, and she's in a totally quiet room in her house. And the VA, I mean, there's illegal stuff going on, mind you, locally with what's it called, Vet Connect. Some of those people work from home. They're supposed to not be working from home because we're dealing with patient data stuff. But all kinds of illegal stuff is going on, and some of these local contractors for Vet Connect and My Healthy Vet, they're working from home. They may be accessing your private data across their insecure network at their house. I don't care if they're using a VPN. A VPN hides where you are for the most part and what you're looking at, and maybe partially, just because using a different proxy may partially deal with and give you some partially deal with security, and partially um, it's not going to encrypt your data, but by virtue of if it's a proxy server that may change different servers, it may help you protect your information a little bit, but not really that much. And if you're using a proxy server, you can't. This is another way to check if you're logging into authenticallyva.gov, or you're authentically logging into any .gov or any DoD system. If you're using a VPN, you cannot log in. It will not let you log in, especially DoD systems. If you're behind a VPN, you cannot log in. So, that being said, if you can log into va.gov easily and you're on a VPN, you you might want to consider that maybe you're being spoofed, because you shouldn't be able to so easily log into va.gov um, behind a VPN. I mean, I could be wrong about this, but I don't think you can. I could be wrong. I could be wrong about that. But as far as the DoD systems and the dot mills, no, you can't. But I certainly know that the regional, VA office, which you're supposed to be transferred. I don't know exactly how it's done, but I guess when you call and you put in your data, it's supposed to route you to the right place. I guess that's the way it used to be. I generally don't call them because everything is online. And the last couple of times I've called them, all they've done is screw me over regarding the Rudisill decision and my GI Bill. I got screwed over. I deserve another year at GI Bill, but I keep getting Vet Connect and I keep getting screwed over. Because, yeah, who I talked to today, it's another local contractor call center locally. I mean, very local. I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the same city. I mean, I can't say that for sure, but it's definitely not somebody sitting in a contracted call center. So if you call them and you're trying to find out what's going on with your claim, and you talk to somebody where there's absolute silence behind them, and it's really loud, their connection to you. Um, Generally, headsets aren't that loud and that clear. That's speakerphone. And nobody talks to somebody on speakerphone at a call center. I worked at one for a year. You don't. And if you can hear somebody typing and you hear fumbling around, I guarantee you're not at a call center. Because at a call center, people are going to be on a headset. And headsets don't pick up if somebody's fumbling around on their desk. A laptop will. A telephone will. A telephone, you can hear people. You hear that tick, 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 tick. That's somebody tapping on their screen of their phone. You're You're not talking to a call center. So that being said, if you're having this stuff happen and you call and call and call what's supposed to be your regional VA office about your claim and nothing happens and you call and call and call, you're being messed with. You may not even be talking to the VA, or you might be talking to a subcontractor that for whatever reason doesn't care about their veterans or just has bad intentions for veterans. And that's what I've seen. I have seen in mid Michigan. I can't uh, know all the reasons why veterans are being targeted, but I can say one thing without a doubt. Some of these call center people, whether they work in the VA or not, they don't care about veterans. Some of the providers that I've seen, at least the VA that I generally go to, they don't care about veterans. They don't care about paying attention to detail. They don't care about reading studies. They will reiterate VA policy, especially if it hurts a veteran. And I'm specifically speaking to the real thorn in my side now, which is continuous glucose monitor. The VA has an entire page long policy regarding them. It's very broad. Now it's very broad. The way VA providers at the VA I generally go to handle it, it's very broad to disclose to you how you're not qualified. But if you read the actual policy, there are so many clauses in there. It's broad to approve a continuous glucose monitor, even within Medicaid. Now, this is interesting. The Medicaid policy is is actually smaller than the VA policy, but they all allow for broad prescriptions of continuous glucose monitors, which is helpful all the way from people who are hypoglycemic, people with brittle diabetes, people with LADA, which, regardless, if you go to this VA, your providers will tell you, oh, LADA is generally only found in people with type 1. That's not true. It's not true at all. LADA is neither type 1 nor type 2 because it goes back and forth and vacillates and it has symptoms from both. And generally, type 1 is never found as an adult. Generally, never. It's type 2. So, no, I'm not saying it can't happen. It can. If the pancreas, if the islet is been destroyed, which can happen through genetic abnormalities, or through cancer, or through poisoning, or I mean, there's lots of different things that can ruin the pancreas, which would in essence make somebody type 1. But LADA is not type 1. LADA has nothing to do with the functionality of the pancreas. Well, I take that back. It does to a certain point. But LADA is generally not found in somebody who is an adult unless, like I said before, pathology or trauma to the pancreas causes it. And I've had neither. But I had a provider try to tell me that, oh no, LADA is only related to type 1. No, it's not. LADA has symptoms of both. And, you know, LADA can come at any time, specifically autoimmune diabetes. Autoimmune related diabetes is, very similar to LADA or can be LADA. So it doesn't always present a clear uh, clinical pathway and clear, pathway to diagnosis and clear symptoms that you can easily know which type it is. It requires investigation. LADA is very harmful if it's not quickly diagnosed. It can become worse than it would have been if it would have been found earlier. But that there's more than two types of diabetes, folks. Don't let your provider tell you there are only two, and don't let them your providers try to jerk you around and gaslight you and tell you that oh, we don't have funding. Oh, your diabetes is like this. We don't need further tests. No, demand them. They say, oh well, we did a GAD, we did a C peptide. You're this. Tell them I want more. I asked for a insulin and glucose test, glucose tolerance test, which if done incorrectly can put you in the hospital. Um, to test for insulin levels and to test sugar. This is one possible way to provide further evidence if you're insulin resistant, besides C peptide. Now, C peptide is molecule for molecule, it's matched to insulin. So if you're on some kind of medication or even insulin, and you have a C peptide before you're diagnosed, before you're medicated, which I do, and then you have a C peptide test after you're medicated. I'm at 30 days now, almost, and it's unchanged. You may be insulin resistant. I spent a couple of hours this weekend researching stuff, and if it's the same exact test after you're medicated, the same score, and it's above 2, your C peptide should never be over 2. If it's over 2, then generally that means there's some kind of pathology there. Uh, so if you're at 5 plus, there's a possibility you're insulin resistant. If you're at a 5 plus before and after you're medicated, at least around 20 to 30 days. Most medications, it takes around that time to get enough in your system. I'm at 25 to 30 days right now. Um, but generally, your levels after a week on a lot of this stuff, generally, you know what course things are going to take after about a week. Generally, unless you're insulin resistant, then it's an unknown. Will the medication be effective? Will it not? It's hard to say. But if you may be insulin resistant, that means more aggressive measures have to be taken, and you need to monitor yourself all the time, which means CGM. If you're hypoglycemic, most people don't know this. It's recommended you go on a CGM because when it hits you, if you have an episode of hypoglycemia and it hits you and you're not prepared, you may end up in an ambulance. If you have diabetes in the beginning, I was told, oh, check your, a couple of times a week, check your blood, and I ignored them. The first 3 weeks of my diabetes, I tested myself after every single meal, and I kept a log, plus at bedtime. Actually, the morning was right before, but actually, I would take the back. It would be before a meal that I tested myself before every meal, but after lunch and after dinner also, and then bedtime. And I kept a log until somebody hacked my log app. My Sugar is a great app, but unfortunately, it can be corrupted if somebody hacks you. They mess up some of the data collection fields. Um, for me, they made half of my data go in one day. So when actually I think I used the app for over 10 days. Anyway, so I went back to paper logs. But it's a great app. It's a great app. Um, just if you have lots of criminal hackers in your town, yeah, you might want to have a standalone, something that never connects to the internet and never has Bluetooth turned on and never has Wi-Fi turned on like that. But anyway, so push for that glucose monitor because what I've noticed locally is price gouging. They're restricting access to the monitors, and within the past 3 months, the prices have doubled. The prices have doubled. It used to be that for around 100 to 120, you would get an entire month. But the past 3 months, it jumped from around 100 to 120 to 160 to 180. Price gouging because people are restricting access locally. People are just like people who locally read ADA the wrong way to disenfranchise people who are disabled. Oh, you don't qualify. You had a bad hip for a year. You got surgery now. It's fixed. They're trying to find ways to whittle away at these laws to protect people, just like they try to whittle away at the Second Amendment, just like they try to whittle away at who's qualified for a glucose meter. And now look at it, the price is doubled. And this, you can't blame this. I'm neither the president's best critic or his worst critic or his best supporter or worst supporter. But this can't be blamed on tariffs. All of these CGMs, they're all made in the states. This is price gouging, restricting access so the price goes up. And apparently, what happened was there's blowback because apparently, I don't know who to blame, the pharmaceutical industry, medical providers, pharmacies. I don't know who to blame for it, but apparently people are mad that there was a period of about 6 months where you could buy them over the counter. Apparently, that made some people mad. So, I mean, actually, it wouldn't be pharmacies because you're still buying them from there. So, I don't know who it would be. Maybe providers, because with CGMs, unlike prescriptions, there's no secret kickbacks. There's no free pens and free models and um, friends that you can meet in the investment industry to help you invest in a pharmaceutical company. There's no kickback. For the pharmaceutical companies, well, I mean, knowing Medicaid, they would probably bid down these, so um, it would probably be more profitable for the over the counters. Um, yeah, so I can't really figure why this price gouging has happened. It doesn't make sense economically. Uh, Matter of fact, the pharmacies I've talked to locally in mid Michigan, they tell you if you don't have a prescription, order it online. They won't give it to you without a prescription. They say, oh, you want to get one of the Dexcom, or there's like three of them that you can buy over the counter now, two or three. I think there's a third one. I think it's new, but you can't get it locally. Nobody has the Dexcom. Nobody has them. They have to be ordered. And like I said, if you go through a pharmacy, they are going to tell you you need a prescription. So in the end, it's not over the counter. So you have to order it online, which means it takes shipping, and uh, and you got to make sure all your ducks are in a row. Because if people can't get a hold of you when you order this, and somebody puts one wrong code somewhere, and there's no prescription because it's supposed to be over the counter, then you'll get a delay. Uh, so yes, I think that's how the price gouging has happened. Something's happening, at least in mid Michigan, with getting those over the counter ones, and providers generally are not supportive of them because there's no kickback. It used to be a time when providers always give out free stuff. Not with this. There's nothing free to give out. There's one pharmaceutical company, though I think it is Dexcom. If you have a prescription, you can get it 10 free days, which is one sensor for free. And then after that, you'll go into regular, they'll send them to you every 10 days or every 2 weeks. But that's the only thing I've seen out there as far as free. So I don't know, maybe this falls at the doorsteps of the providers, perhaps. It cuts them out. There's no kickback. So that may be. I'm not going to point a finger at anybody without evidence, but this is why the price is uh, increasing. Law of supply and demand, and there's no kickback. Providers don't receive any kickback. And my experience with the VA, at least here, despite the availability, they have tons of these things, tons of them, that they're trying to restrict access. At least the VA in Saginaw, they're trying to restrict access to them. When, whether you have brittle diabetes or hypoglycemia, or you're type 1 or you're type 2, it helps everybody. So why isn't something that helps patients have better outcomes medically and have a higher MMI, which is a maximum medical improvement because their sugar is under control? Why is it being restricted when the policy is broad? It provides ample opportunity for many different types of diabetes or hypoglycemia to get them. Why are they being restricted? And why can't you get through to a call center, through a local connection, so you can talk about your claim that keeps getting, you know, keeps getting recycled and keeps getting going back forward for 10 months? You know, why are local veterans, at least in this part of mid Michigan, being repeatedly targeted, their health and their finances derailed? Because if you're not at your maximum medical improvement, you're not going to go out and find a job or start a business because you're struggling just to keep what you need mentally, physically, so you can take care of your family. Why are these things happening?